What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Travel Guy podcast. As always, I'm Adi84 from where'sadi.com and the Wicked Explorers, the TW Explorers, twexplorers.com. This is episode 9. We're going to be talking about the MLB Speedway Classic that took place last weekend, actually. And we were there to experience a record-breaking and first for many things for Major League Baseball. It didn't exactly go off as smoothly as anyone would have wanted it to gone, but nevertheless, it was still a good time. We did enjoy ourselves, and I want to talk a little bit about uh basically what happened, how did it go down, what my criticism would be to basically change some things that went on. But other than that, it was a hell of a time. And to see that baseball stadium in a racetrack, it was amazing because the way that the track is built, it is similar to like a Coliseum type building. In fact, they call it the Coliseum of Racing. The last Coliseum left used on this planet, they say. But you have to understand that it's a half-mile total radius, whereas most football fields have I believe it's a, I don't know what size the track is on a football field. Is it a quarter mile, maybe? I can't remember from the days I played, but basically it's a football field can fit in there very nicely, but there's still a lot of room on the back. And then you can remember there's that room distance between where the infield is to the track, 3 lanes wide of cars, right? It all goes down to a giant bowl, which is pretty cool. So Bristol for racing, I'd never been, but I've been there for a football game, and now I've been there for a baseball game. You could have probably put 2 baseball fields back to back in there. And in fact, I think this is something Major League Baseball should do, and I think it'd be very interesting. I think what you should do is use like a track that has a lot of seating, but also maybe like a mile track, so it's double the size of this, and you could put 2 baseball fields in the track at once, and then you have 2 games going on at once, and then the next day the teams switch opponents, kind of thing. I don't know. It'd screw up the schedule a little bit, but it'd be interesting seeing 2 games going on at once in one building and having 4 different teams there. And if you can get something that they're like rivals or somewhere divisional teams that kind of hate each other, anyways, like if you had the Yankees and the Sox and the Blue Jays and the Orioles all playing at the same time over a course of 3 days and they just play each other, I think that'd be pretty interesting. But just an idea. I mean, it's kind of crazy. The amount of work they put to put this field together just to use it for one game is kind of ridiculous. I think MLB, it'll be one of the things we talk about, how they dropped the ball and potential they could have done it. But let's just start from the scratch. Let's start how this whole thing went down in the first place. So we go back to like last year, last August, around almost a year ago, or more than a year ago to today. And the time of this broadcast is the 11th of August. And we got some information that there would potentially be a baseball game being held at Bristol Speedway. And all we found out was the Braves might have been involved in this. And we kind of got like a little hint of this months before. We have a lot of friends that live in Tennessee, and they kind of got like kind of low down that Bristol was like brewing something like a baseball game, and perhaps it was a Major League Baseball game that was going to be put in there. Now, if you know anything about East Tennessee, it is located, basically where this racetrack is in the tip of Tennessee. So if you look at the Tennessee lengthwise, it's like the very, very tip on the eastern side of the state, right before you get into North Carolina, a little south of Virginia. In fact, Bristol is a Bristol, Virginia, and a Bristol, Tennessee, and they both border each other off of 81. And it is literally nothing out there other than the racetrack. They had built a casino in the Bristol, Virginia part, and they're starting to kind of make it up and coming. The closest city is Johnson City, or major city. And that's like a level 3 major city, I would say. And then the next major city is like Knoxville, which I would consider like a level 2 major city. That's like an hour and 45 minutes away. Charlotte's about 2 hours away. Now, the location of Bristol was perfect because Cincinnati, who was one of the teams that played the Reds, is about 4 hours south, and Atlanta Braves are about 4.5 hours, or to go south. 4 or 5 south of Bristol is Atlanta, and obviously 4.5 hours north of Bristol would be Cincinnati. So It was a good middle point for a lot of people to go see the game. The demographics of the area, sports fan wise, you gotta remember the Braves have only been there since I believe 1969 in Atlanta. They were in Milwaukee and Boston prior to that. So a lot of those people who lived in the Southeast really didn't have a team until the late 60s, early 70s. For the most part, they were probably, a lot of them were going for Cincinnati, one of the oldest teams in baseball. Very, very popular in the Rust Belt and mining areas of this country because of just how old the team is and how close it is to Kentucky and Tennessee and all that. So there was a lot of Reds teams, and just their path of just how good they were over the years made them very popular down there. So there was a significant amount of Reds fans that lived in the Tennessee, Kentucky area, Virginia for a matter. Can you remember also DC didn't have a team until uh, you know, they left in 1970 and didn't come back to 2006. So it's a area of the country where baseball is relatively new in comparison to how old the sport is going on. Sport being over almost 200 years old, being played in a professional level in this country. So it was a good spot to really get the newer baseball fans. I say newer. There's probably people. There are a lot of older people who are Braves fans that just kind of adopted the team once they moved to Atlanta over the years. So they weren't necessarily, Braves fans their entire life, but perhaps they came as Braves fans later. And if you haven't noticed, your little Henry, he's behind us. You can see in the background. Wave, Henry. Give everyone a wave. Say hi. There he is. He's just listening to the podcast today. We're doing it outside today. We're out of the studio. It is 93 degrees right now up here in north of Boston. So we decided to take this podcast outside to our outside studio and broadcast out there on the sports porch. As you can see, you got the Red Sox memorabilia up there, right there. And that's what we're doing today, just to relax a little bit. So get back to where we started. Once we found out there was going to be a game there, I did everything in my power to make sure I was could get a first call on tickets. So I subscribed to the Reds, subscribed to the Braves, subscribed to Bristol Motor Speedway, just so I could get first dibs on when these tickets went on sale. And as things started materializing and surfacing, it was around this time last year where we realized it was going to be the Braves, and it was going to be the Reds, and it was going to be a one game, and they were going to adapt the schedule accordingly. And this is how it was going to work. Now, it was funny because the schedule had came out already. And it was weird because they had an off day on a Friday, which doesn't really happen. So it was kind of like we knew it was going to happen, but I thought it was going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. So once we got that, and then I got the information probably in the fall, winter-ish time to get the tickets. We got 8 tickets because we knew we were going down with a bunch of our friends who lived down in that area, and that was how we are going to spend the time down there, just with them, and then going to the game and all that stuff. So fast forward to our plan, and we typically go down to Tennessee, usually late August. This year we changed it because we figured we're going to go down there and do our trip in the first week of August and bring this game as part of a trip, which was pretty cool. So we did that. Along this trip, we've seen a bunch of minor league baseball fields, that we haven't seen. So that we kind of added that all into the trip and everything. So we got the tickets. Now, we had fairly cheaper tickets. They weren't obstructive or anything. They were right between third base and the foul pole. First base and the foul pole. I'm sorry. I thought the seats were going to be terrible in comparison to how big this place was, and they actually weren't that bad. They were very similar to our Red Sox seats, except just further back from the field, not as close to the field, but about the same height. So that was pretty cool. And it was pretty impressive to see how this go down. So the game was going to be on Saturday. First pitch was 7. They had Tim McGraw on the concert. They had a few other things going on. Pitbull was essentially there, but he came out for one song. They were really trying to speed the intros to get them done because I think they had a feeling that this was going to get rained out and moved, but they didn't want to say anything, and they didn't have a rain date officially yet, but they figured a lot of these people that were there for the introduction and stuff like that were only going to be there for that one day, and they wouldn't be able to get them the next day. So they did everything they could to get the Tim McGraw concert in, to do the way they introduced the players to the field. They all had pickup trucks with their numbers on them, and they did a lap around the field, and all the guys got out of the truck and then walked the field to get to the dugouts before they did the open ceremonies. You had let's see, Johnny Bench and Chipper Jones throwing out the first pitch, two legends for either of the teams. The attendance was record breaking, all time Major League Baseball game, and it was 91,032. The only other game in professional baseball that was larger than this was a preseason game versus the Red Sox and the Dodgers in 2008, and that had about 115,000 people. So, as for regular season game, this still is the record. And it's probably one of the largest baseball games in a long time, have that many people. To give a little background, the field dimensions were 330 down each of the foul lines, 400 to center field, 375 to the right alley, 384 to the left alley. The diamond built across the track infield of a speedway, primarily situated turns 3 and 4 of the track, southwest section of the speedway. Turns 1 and 2 would have a stage pregame. They put a giant top over the seats that were behind that area because you just wouldn't be able to see anything because of the angle, anyways. They did sell obstructed seats that you couldn't see stuff, so people who wanted to get in there bad enough could get that. So the field was announced to be AstroTurf provided artificial surface with a traditional dirt infield on June 25th due to the asphalt and the concrete surface of its footprint providing a poor bed for natural grass to allow the turf to be reused for other purposes after the game. Yeah, so the reason the grass looks so great because apparently it was it was that fake field turf. I thought it was grass to be honest with you, but it looked really, really good. So it wasn't gonna work. And what they did was they laid down a bed of gravel to level the field up a little bit before. And there's a time lapse that we actually have in our video that you probably won't see for a few months. But it shows you like how they built the stadium over the course of the time, and they laid down the surface, and then they put the turf on top of it, and they built everything up. It was pretty impressive how they did it. It was a pretty nice temporary ballpark. So as we said, the pregame ceremony. So it says Bristol hosted the pregame. Bristol is a border city between Tennessee and Virginia, known as the birthplace of country music. To celebrate its roots, Tim McGraw headlined. The concert also included Grammy-winning Pitbull, who came out for half a song with Tim McGraw. We didn't see any more of that. And Jake Owen did the pre-concert. We weren't sure that if Pitbull actually did the pre-concert before you need special tickets for it. We didn't have, and it was so rainy and crappy anyways. We just kind of wanted to get to our seats. So there was a fan zone. That's where Owen performed. So it doesn't say Pitbull performed this, so I'm assuming he was not there. They had a Ferris wheel, batting cages, pitching tunnel. We just wanted to get into the stadium at this point. It wasn't that much of a cluster to get in. It actually was a lot easier to get in than it was a football game that was held there. 10 years ago, 9 years ago. But we just wanted to make sure we got to our seats, got our drinks, food, and stuff like that, got comfortable, and was able to see the Tim McGraw things. So the uniforms, early reports of the Braves were going to be a navy with gray pants, featured a font with the numbers of the race cars, sleeve patch, Speedway Classic 25 on it. The concepts were really cool. They had like checker patterns, they had race themed uniforms. The numbers were like slanted like the race cars have it. Let's see, the Reds had the checkered flag on theirs, and the then the Braves had like a flame pattern on the brim of the hats and everything. That was pretty cool. The Reds catcher Tyler Stevenson had his catching equipment be like Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. Really cool with the Wonder Bread and everything like that. So that was a really cool little thing. The umpires were really cool because like 3 of them are from the area. In fact, Will Little, who worked behind the plate, calling balls and strikes, grew up in Johnson City, 20 miles away. So this is like a hometown game for him. A couple of other guys grew up around the area too. So it was really, really cool to be able to call a game in the first professional baseball game in the state of Tennessee, which is pretty amazing too. And when you think about that, it's pretty amazing. I do think, I don't know this for sure, but I think there were some Negro League teams that played in Tennessee back in the day. But as for a professional MLB team, no team has ever played in Tennessee. Tennessee is home to 4 minor league teams. They have the AAA Memphis team, AAA Nashville team. They have a AA Knoxville team, and I believe the Double A is Chattanooga, or it's either 1A. I can't remember, but they do have 4 teams that do play in the state for the minors, but none for the majors. So this was kind of cool to see that. And scheduling, they played first 2 games at Great America up in Cincinnati, and then they came down for this game. Essentially, Sunday was supposed to be an off day, supposed to be a travel day for the team, and they never mentioned a rain date or anything when they were coming up with this concept of this idea, and I think that's the biggest mistake right there. And I wonder if they didn't post it because they were afraid people weren't going to show up if it was going to rain, assuming that there was going to be a rain date. I do think if this was something they did had in the plans, then they should have called this game a lot earlier than they did. So then, to give you a recap of what happened. So the Speedway Classic goes on. Everyone plays. Everyone has a good time. The grounds crew rolls up the top, and they go into a delay. They play a half a first inning, and they go into a delay. And they move everything back. So the Braves finally make it on the field at 9:40. And it's just terrible. It's like to delay the game as much as they did. And how long it took for them to even figure out they're going to delay the game. It was just like not doing anything for anyone. But hey, you can let the dogs out of the home. It just downpoured the entire time. As soon as the announcements were over, it just rained and rained and rained. So we took shelter underneath the stands, and we were there for about an hour, and we were just kind of waiting it out. And they didn't really play the game. And at one point, we kind of made the executive decision to say, let's just call it and see what it is. If they play, it sucks. We missed it. But if they somehow call the game and they move it, it's essentially be tomorrow. So we went on, and finally at 10:25, they announced suspending the game. We left around 10. We were walking out of the stadium, walking back to the car, and when we got there, I overheard a police officer saying something. Oh, I didn't know that until tomorrow, and they rescheduled. And I looked at my tickets; they got issued until 1 p.m. 1 p.m. the next day on Sunday. So they had a rain date. It obviously wasn't as many people showed up for the rain date. I'd say probably about half. They probably had about 49,000 people there, which is still pretty good for a major league game. But I wish they knew the weather wasn't going to change. They knew this was going to stay up. It was getting late. People were leaving anyways. I think after an hour of realizing it was not going to happen, they should just call it then instead of wait until 10:25 p.m. to call the game, which didn't really do anything for anyone except delay everyone. It was just a hassle. So we got back to our friend's house around midnight after facing the traffic and all that stuff. And, we made a decision that we were going to go. And in fact, we had extra people go. We had some extra people go because we had some extra tickets. So, and then we bought some, one of the girls bought a cheap ticket so that one of the other kids could go. So we had 9 of us there on the second day. So, which was great. We didn't tailgate. We kind of we shot in. We went for breakfast and we shot in, which was nice. And it was nice and easy. And I gotta say, props to all the people that worked this race at Bristol. You guys did a great job. I know the conditions sucked. There were so many people. I know people talking about how they ran out of food. They ran out of like buns for hot dogs. The souvenir shop when we walked in, one side of it was completely cleared out by the time we got in there. I was able to get a program, a patch, and Henry got a baseball to add to his collection, so that was nice. Other than that, they didn't really have much. It was pretty sold out pretty good. And by the second day, everything was gone. And I was talking to a couple of vendors there, and they said they did pretty good. It sucked that they were running out of stuff and everything like that, but it's hard to predict what people are going to be eating and drinking and stuff, considering during a race at Bristol, you can bring your own beer and food in, and unfortunately, because it was an MLB game, they had to go by MLB rules. So you can bring your own booze in. They were restricted to the 7th inning type stuff. And so with a lot of that said, that could really skew your ordering. And you don't want to be left with too much stuff. I know they got a race in 2 weeks, but at the same time, stuff go bad. You don't want to overbuy. So that was probably one of the other things that was a problem. But I mean, the lines are very long because those racetracks aren't set up for that much volume of people eating and drinking, because a lot of times, like I said, you can bring your own stuff in. So that kind of was a situation right there. Maybe bring in more temporary food stands. Maybe you could outsource to like people that wanted to put their own food in there. I know there was a couple in there. I don't know if those were part of the Raceway or they had a contract with the Raceway, but if like Bob's Pizza had a food truck, they should have worked their way in so Bob's Pizza could get in there and give a lot more options for fans and also reduce the lines a little bit. May have been a better idea to choose. I don't know, maybe something to think about next time. Definitely um having a rain date and executing that rain date a lot earlier would have been something I would have done as well. Um, I ended up working for the Braves. Braves ended up winning the game 4-2. They were down, 1-0 when the game resumed, and then they came back at a nice homer in the second, went up 3-1. Reds got another run in two, and then it was 3-2 for most of the game to the seventh. The Braves got another run, and then 4-2 was the final right to the end. So we thought it was going to be a very high scoring game that ended up being a very low scoring game. So that worked out pretty good. And when you look at all the stuff that happened during the game and the prep, and I like I said, I want to give praise to people that worked at the racetrack. Give praise to people that own the racetrack as well. If you parked, or the second day, if you came in and you were parking on race property, they didn't charge it. It was free. So we paid $30 the day before, but we were in a private lot. And obviously they were charging the same amount the next day. We drove up a little bit further, went to a race lot, and they said free, just for showing their appreciation. So thank you for all the cops, police officers, fire, EMS, all the people that had to work that race too, because they had to come out for a second day to get that all set up, which they did, which was really cool. They made that happen. It was just a great time. I think everyone who went there the second day enjoyed the weather being a lot nicer. It was a little overcast. It was warmer, no rain. You were able to move around a little bit more. You had a little more access to the parts of the field that you didn't necessarily have the first day. And they got the game in, which is all that matters at the end of the day. So, the summary of the game, you can find on Wikipedia that tells you like kind of how it all started and all that stuff. But it was, and I'm not sure. I think they broadcast it the second day. I heard mixed people said some people got it, some people didn't get the broadcast. I don't know if that's true or not. I do know some people did watch it the second day, so it was cool. But we were able to tailgate like we would for a NASCAR race or a football game. And it was a little walk. Bristol's great. They have these buses that will pick you up at their lots. So they have a piece of property spread all the way out around the racetrack where people can camp and park and stuff like that if you go into the race and everything. And they have these school buses that will periodically pick you up like they just keep making rounds until everyone's picked up basically to bring you. So we took that to the game and back. We were trying to figure out was the same amount of distance to walk it or to take the bus, and it ends up being about the same because the bus does a few more loops before it actually drops you close to the racetrack. So, with that said, it's either or. If you're far enough away, then it might make sense. But, initially when you walk in, the view of this thing was absolutely amazing. I mean, it is really, really cool seeing something that's not supposed to be there and done so well too. They have every detail taken into consideration. And if you look at some of the video from the perspective of the players, by the way they set up the field, when you were looking out to the outfield, you didn't see the gap between the outfield wall and the track because you were so far down the way they were oriented. It just looks like the wall, and then the fans start from there. So you didn't. So as a player, you really had this illusion that you were playing in this gigantic stadium. That most stadiums these days have tiers, right? So it's high, right, and everyone's looking down. This was just like old school bowl. It was just 100 rows back, kind of all the way from the front, which is really cool. And when you look at the pictures, you can see where they had blacked out some of the seats because it just didn't make any sense having seats there because you wouldn't be able to see anything because of the way they set up some of the temporary grandstand and everything. It is a shame that they only used this for one game, though. The fact that there's a lot of work, a lot of money went into this. They should have done similar to what the NFL does, or what, or not the NFL, but what the college football does when they do these college games in these arenas and stadiums. They have a lot of local smaller colleges and high school teams use the field as well. Same with the hockey when they do the Winter Classic, they set up the thing, and some of the college and local teams will play on the ice over the week or two. They should have done this in a way that they had another game where UT played Virginia Tech, say, a baseball game there, some SEC matchups there would have been cool. Maybe Kentucky versus Tennessee would have been a really good one to look at too. Maybe utilize the field. They got like maybe like 5, 6 uses out of this field over the course of a week and a half would have been great, but they didn't and they couldn't, and that's kind of a waste and missed opportunity for other people to be able to go to the game, and not, you know, have to watch it on, just to see the stadium itself. You know what I mean? But maybe that's what makes it unique that you're only able to get into that particular day. I guess you could think of it that way as well. Would I do this again? Absolutely. But I hope MLB continues doing this crazy thing where they put baseball games in places where baseball shouldn't be played. Um, this was a great idea. I think they should start doing these in football stadiums. And adjusting the walls. Of course, you don't have a giant like left or right field, right? When you have this thing set up here. Maybe, move games around to cities that don't have a professional baseball team and play in their football field, perhaps. Something unique like that. Racetracks you could do it in. I mean, your options are unlimited to what you can play a baseball game in, different lots and stuff. It'd be really cool to see them be able to do something like this at least once a year, maybe for a game or two, and then maybe just utilize the field better is my only criticism. But field look great, conditions are great. You couldn't really get a read on the wind because you were so far down and the stand was so high up. You were a bowl that the wind really didn't have much of an effect. Although there was a couple home runs were hit. So with that said, I guess it was all right. They did demolish a building to accumulate the field. I heard, which it is what it is. What are you gonna do? But you know, if the racetrack was willing to do that, it's cool. Now they had this big giant screen that hangs over the field, and they use that for the football game, and they use that for the race and stuff. And it's amazing. It's a giant. I think it's the biggest screen in all the stadiums, bigger than the one in Dallas actually. And they had to adjust it a bit because it isn't fair territory. I think only one ball hit it. I thought a lot more balls were gonna hit it. It was oriented like in like center field, halfway between the infield and the wall a bit. And I think only one ball hit it the entire time. And it was going foul anyway. So it was kind of had the Tropicana field effect when you're playing, right? But other than that, it was pretty cool. Rained out. What are you gonna do? You can't control the weather. But I would say I give this game an 8 out of 10, just because how cool it was. And totally would do this again. I think if you have an opportunity to do this, you should do it as well because it's really, really cool to see something like this go down, especially for baseball. Such a pastime, an area of the country that loves baseball, best college and professional, which is very rare to find a part of a country that enjoys both sports. I guess equally, right? SEC is a powerhouse in baseball. They all love their college teams down there, and the Braves own the Southeast, regardless. So, but I think it was also a test to see if professional baseball could survive in Tennessee or in that area. There's always been talks of Nashville getting a pro team, Charlotte getting a pro team. These were two major cities in the Southeast that could use and probably could support a professional baseball team if they put one in. So something to think about for the MLB. Maybe when they look over the numbers and they say, "Hey, we could pull a game off here. Perhaps we could do this in the future." I don't mind. I mean, I'm not commissioner. I'm not Rob Manfred. But these would have been things I'd be looking into having a game like this. Could Nashville support an MLB team and be competitive and have a natural rivalry with perhaps the Braves that just appears out of nowhere? Or maybe Charlotte. Now it's tough because Charlotte and Nashville do have fairly new minor league ballparks, AAA parks. Could you temporarily move a team to one of these towns for the season and see if we can draw a crowd? Perhaps. So they've done this with, when the New Orleans Hornets had to play in Oklahoma City, right, for a season or two after Katrina. They experimented with that. They see people went to the games, and they knew that Oklahoma could support a basketball team. So perhaps maybe the Rays, a team that's struggling, maybe they play a season in Nashville at the AAA park or Charlotte in the AAA park and share time and see if they can fill out a stadium or, maybe the football stadium in Nashville becomes a temporary baseball stadium as well. Who knows? There's plenty of possibilities to get this thing down. So I think this was a really good test for baseball in the Southeast. It was a really good test for having these crazy games. Obviously, with everything you do new, you have a learning curve, and hopefully MLB learned what they had to do to fix this problem or any problems. You can't control the rain. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. So that was out of their hands. But maybe calling the game a little earlier and maybe having a set rain date so people could plan accordingly. Because a lot of people didn't go to the game on Sunday. Were probably that was their travel day heading back to Cincinnati or Atlanta or wherever the hell they were coming from. So, if they're flying, you can't really change that. We happened to be starting our vacation that week. So that day we weren't in anything planned. So it was just we just got to our hotel a little later that next day. So things to think about. But thank you guys for watching. If you've been to the Speedway Classic in Bristol, let me know. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought they could do better. And please subscribe, leave your comments, and we'll see you guys very soon on the Travel Guy, about 84. See you guys later. Bye. Bye, Henry.